In the early morning of February 28, 1994, 6 volunteer pilots from the Bosnian Serb Air Force embarked on a bombing mission in violation of a NATO no-fly zone. Leading the formation was Ranko Vukmirovic, piloting Jastreb J-21 jets, outmatched in speed, maneuverability, and weaponry by NATO's F-16s. Flying low to avoid radar detection, they were forced to ascend to 2,000 meters as they approached their target, a weapons factory. The change in altitude exposed them to NATO surveillance, triggering an alert to 2 patrolling F-16s 50 miles away. The American pilots received their orders and banked towards the approaching aircraft. Despite previous encounters where NATO jets had only warned intruding pilots, Vukmirovic and his men pressed forward. As the Jastrebs lined up for their attack run, they spotted the contrails of the approaching F-16s. The American jets roared past, a clear show of force, but the Serb pilots remained focused. One by one, they released their 550-pound bombs, using their outdated optical sights. Explosions erupted as their mission objective was achieved. The F-16 pilots received the confirmation the enemy had dropped their bombs. Orders came through, engagement authorized. The first missile, an AIM-120 AMRAAM, streaked toward the rear of the formation. Zlatan Krnalic, flying at the back, saw the explosion as his wingman's plane was torn apart. The remaining J-21 scattered, each pilot diving low in an attempt to escape. One of the F-16s gave chase, closing in on Krnalic as he weaved through the valleys. Another missile was fired, an AIM-9 Sidewinder. It detonated near some power lines, damaging his aircraft but failing to bring it down. His radio was dead, leaving him isolated. Expecting another attack, he watched as the F-16 suddenly pulled away. Elsewhere, Majkorovic and his wingmen struggled to evade the relentless pursuit. A second AIM-120 found its mark, obliterating Majkorovic's wingman in an instant. Moments later, another missile struck Majkorovic's aircraft. Flames engulfed his jet, forcing him to eject. As he descended under his parachute, the F-16s pushed on towards their next targets. South of the battlefield, Vukmirovic and Goran Zaric had no choice but to listen as their comrades were shot down. Their hopes faded when an F-16 appeared behind them. With fuel running low, the American pilot fired one last missile. Vukmirovic tried to evade, but the explosion near his wing only caused minor damage. Before another attack could come, the F-16 was forced to turn away. However, 2 more NATO jets were already en route. Vukmirovic and Zaric, desperate, dove into the valleys, flying dangerously low to avoid pursuit. But the F-16s kept pace. Realizing they could not escape, Vukmirovic attempted a final maneuver, flying straight at cliff, hoping to pull up at the last second. The ground rushed toward them. At the critical moment, he yanked the controls, but his aircraft clipped the ground and exploded. There was no parachute. Zaric barely cleared the pull-up, but had no time to grieve. The F-16s remained on his tail. Another missile was fired. It struck his aircraft, sending it spiraling out of control. He ejected, but at too low an altitude. His parachute failed to open, and he fell into the wreckage of his own plane. With the battle nearly over, the F-16 spotted one final Jastreb. It was Krnalic, still limping home with his damaged jet. Expecting to be finished off, he prepared to eject, but instead, the American pilot pulled up beside him, matching his speed. They locked eyes. The F-16 pilot saluted him and then turned away. Out of the 6 Jastreb pilots who embarked on that mission, 3 never returned. This encounter, later known as the Banja Luka incident, was NATO's first combat engagement in history. Robert Wilbur Wright was credited with 3 victories, the highest tally by a USAF pilot in a single mission since the Korean War, while Stephen Yogi Allen claimed 1. Krnalic later reflected, "I don't have any bad feelings towards the American pilots. We had our task, they had theirs.